Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Namaskar. Coming up in the next hour. Russian President Vladimir Putin calls and briefs Prime Minister Narendra Modi about the Alaska talks with President Trump. The Prime Minister underlines India's consistent position for peaceful resolution of the Ukraine conflict. India welcomes Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi for the 24th Special Representative talks. India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar calls for mutual respect, peaceful borders and forward-looking ties ahead of the SCO summit. Prime Minister Modi meets the astronaut. Shubhanshu Shukla applauds his historic International Space Station mission. Parliament also honours India's second man in space. US President Donald Trump is hosting Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and the EU leaders to work out a peace deal with Russia amid the raging conflict. Unexpected GST reforms bring the bulls back to the Lal Street. The Sensex and the Nifty gain about 1% each at close. Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a telephone call today from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Putin shared his assessment of his meeting with the US President Donald Trump in Alaska last week. While thanking President Putin, the Prime Minister underlined India's consistent position for a peaceful resolution of the conflict through diplomacy and dialogue. Prime Minister Modi reiterated that India supports all efforts in this regard. The two leaders also touched upon a number of issues of bilateral cooperation with a view to further strengthen the special and strategic partnership between India and Russia, and also agreed to remain in close touch. The Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy met with US Special Envoy on Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, in Washington, D.C. ahead of the high-stakes talks on peace with the US President Donald Trump later today. Meanwhile, the European Council President Antonio Costa, he's said on Monday that he would convene a video conference for the European Council members on Tuesday afternoon to debrief them about these meetings in Washington on Ukraine.
After rolling out the red carpet for Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday, US President Donald Trump is relying on Ukraine to accept a deal to end Europe's deadliest conflict in 80 years. The war has killed tens of thousands and displaced millions. Trump told Ukraine to give up hopes of getting back annexed Crimea or joining NATO as he hosts President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and European leaders. Leaders accompanying the Ukrainian president include UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte in Washington on Monday. The European leaders are in Washington to show solidarity with Ukraine and to press for strong security guarantees in any post-war settlement. But the path to that peace remains uncertain, as just hours before the summit, President Trump posted on social media saying Zelenskyy could choose to end the conflict almost immediately, but warned that Kyiv's goals of retaking Crimea or joining NATO are off the table. US Special Secretary Steve Witkoff had earlier said that President Trump is considering offering Ukraine NATO-like security guarantees and that Russia is open to the idea.
It means that the United States is potentially prepared to be able to give Article 5 security guarantees, but not from NATO, directly from the United States and other European countries. That is big. I mean, really big.
Ahead of the high-stake talks on Monday with Trump, Zelenskyy too stressed that it was up to Russia to end its invasion, adding that Russia should not be rewarded for its invasion. Zelenskyy also said that Russia had carried out clinical strikes on Ukraine, including on an Azerbaijani oil facility ahead of the planned talks. Meanwhile, China has called for all parties to agree to peace as soon as possible. Commenting on the Trump-Putin summit, China's foreign ministry said Beijing supported all efforts for peaceful settlement of the Ukraine crisis.
We expect that all parties and stakeholders can participate in the peace negotiations process in a timely manner and reach a fair, lasting, binding peace agreement that is acceptable to all parties as soon as possible.
As diplomacy gains momentum, Russia's defense ministry released footage on Monday showing soldiers raising Russian flags after capturing a settlement in Ukraine's eastern Donetsk region. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, Russia and Ukraine are engaged in a deadly conflict for 3.5 years, and during this period, several diplomatic efforts have been made to resolve the crisis, but resolution to the conflict remains elusive. In this next report, we try to understand the complexities of this conflict and the obstacles in the path of its resolution.
As Russia seems unstoppable in its plans to gain more and more grounds, Ukraine and its European allies are firming up a plan to deal with President Vladimir Putin in the coming days, to put an end to the 3-year-long war between the two erstwhile Soviet nations. The conflict between Russia and Ukraine stems from a complex history of political, cultural, and strategic tensions, which include Russia's desire to maintain influence over Ukraine and its aspirations for closer ties with the West, including NATO membership. For a deep understanding of this conflict, let us decipher the Alaska talks between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin and Istanbul peace talks between the delegations of Russia and Ukraine. At the Alaska summit with Donald Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin demanded full control of Ukraine's Donetsk and Luhansk regions as a condition for ending the 3-year war. He added that Kiev will have to drop its ambitions to join NATO, and it will have to disarm significantly. Putin further said that if Kiev pulls back and cedes all of the Donbass, he would halt Russia's advances on Kherson and Zaporizhia, and would hand back small occupied parts of Sumy and Kharkiv to Ukraine. Putin added that as part of the peace deal, Western countries will have to lift sanctions on Russia. So far as Ukraine is concerned, it has called for an unconditional ceasefire on land, sea and sky as a prerequisite for talks. Ukraine says that any deal must include security guarantees to prevent Russia from attacking again, and that there should be no restrictions on the number of troops it can deploy on its territory. Ukraine wants that sanctions on Russia should only be lifted gradually, and that there should be a way of reimposing them if needed. Russia and Ukraine held 3 rounds of peace talks in May, June, and July this year in the city of Istanbul, Turkey. In these talks, Russia gave Ukraine 2 options for a 30-day ceasefire. One option called for Ukraine to withdraw its troops from Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson. In an alternative option, Russia put forward a package proposal, which included a halt to the mobilization of its army, a halt to the supply of Western arms, and a ban on the presence of any third country military on its soil. Moscow also suggested Ukraine lift martial law and hold elections, after which the 2 countries could sign a comprehensive peace treaty. Russia says under the peace treaty, Ukraine must declare its neutral status between Russia and the West, abandon its bid to join NATO, limit the size of its armed forces, and recognize Russian as an official language at par with Ukrainian. The memorandum presented by Ukraine to Moscow in Istanbul stressed on the need for a complete and unconditional 30-day ceasefire to set the stage for peace talks. It called Ukraine's continued rejection of Russian demands for neutral status and termed it as an attack on its sovereignty. Ukraine declared that it was free to choose its alliances and said its NATO membership would depend on consensus with the alliance. It stressed that Kiev rejects any restrictions on the size and other parameters of its armed forces, as well as curbs on the presence of foreign troops on its soil. The Ukrainian memorandum also opposed recognition of any territorial gains by Russia. Ukraine also stressed the need for international security guarantees to ensure the implementation of peace agreements and prevent further aggression. But with both Ukraine and Russia firm on their demands, resolution to the conflict remains elusive. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi held a meeting in New Delhi. Dr. Jaishankar said that India and China have seen a difficult period in their relationship, and now the two nations seek to move ahead.
Having seen a difficult period in our relationship, Excellency, our two nations now seek to move ahead. This requires a candid and constructive approach from both sides. In that endeavor, we must be guided by the three mutuals: mutual respect, mutual sensitivity, and mutual interest. Differences must not become disputes, nor competition conflict. Today, our talks will cover economic and trade issues, pilgrimages, people-to-people contacts, river data sharing, border trade, connectivity, and bilateral exchanges.
Jaishankar added that discussing border issues is very important because that is the basis for any positive momentum in the India-China ties, and also to maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas.
Your Excellency will also be discussing, border issues with our Special Representative, National Security Advisor, Ajit Doval, tomorrow. This is very important because the basis for any positive momentum in our ties is the ability to jointly maintain peace and tranquility in the border areas. It is also essential that the de-escalation process move forward. Excellency, when the world's two largest nations meet, it is natural that the international situation will be discussed. We seek a fair, balanced, and multipolar world order, including a multipolar Asia. Reform multilateralism is also the call of the day. In the current environment, there is clearly the imperative of maintaining and enhancing stability in the global economy as well. The fight against terrorism in all its forms and manifestations is another major priority. I look forward to our exchange of views.
Earlier, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi arrived in New Delhi on a two-day visit to India. And during his visit, Wang Yi will hold the 24th round of the Special Representative's talks on the India-China boundary question with India's Special Representative Ajit Doval, who's the National Security Advisor. Prime Minister Narendra Modi chaired a high-level meeting on Monday. This is to deliberate on the roadmap for the next generation reforms aimed at speedy and comprehensive reforms that will enhance ease of living, improve ease of doing business, and foster inclusive prosperity. And still to come here on DD India Newshour. Spain fights wildfires with record international aid. A Spanish army deploys 1,900 troops to fight fire. To help the firefighters. Myanmar to hold the first phase of its general elections on December 28. Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the Economic Brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India. You're watching DD India Newshour. I'm Mark Lin. Myanmar's military junta said that the elections will be held on December 28 despite a raging civil war international condemnation and large parts of the country beyond its control. The country has been in turmoil since the army ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's elected government in 2021, sparking nationwide resistance and ongoing violence. Analysts say that the election is designed to cement the junta chief Min Aung Hlaing's grip on power, not restore democracy. Pro-democracy fighters and ethnic armed groups have vowed to block the vote in areas that they control. A Hamas source has said on Monday that the group had agreed to a new proposal from the mediators for a ceasefire in Gaza, devastated by more than 22 months of conflict between the Islamist group and Israel. A Palestinian source familiar with the negotiations said that the mediators were expected to announce that an agreement has been reached to set a date for the resumption of talks. The source added that mediators provided Hamas and the factions with guarantees for the implementation of the agreement, along with a commitment to resume talks to seek a permanent solution. There has been no immediate response from the Israeli government side to these developments. The US envoy Tom Barak on Monday called on Israel to honor commitments under a ceasefire that ended its war with Hezbollah. Barak said that he is now in a discussion with Israel regarding what their position is. Barak also said that there's always a step-by-step approach, but he thinks that the Lebanese government has fulfilled its part.
You're going to see progress on all sides. And what does progress mean? Progress means a better life for everybody. It means a better life for the people, a better life for our neighbors, and at least the beginning of a roadway to a different kind of dialogue with all of our neighbors. The dealing with Hezbollah, as we've always said, is a Lebanese process.
The world is reeling from a surge in extreme weather disasters. From Europe to Asia, raging wildfires and deadly floods have wreaked havoc, displacing thousands and leaving communities in a crisis. Well, DD India's Rahul Upadhyay has been tracking events. Let's listen to his report.
The world is witnessing a dramatic surge in wildfires and catastrophic floods driven by extreme weather events, soaring temperatures, rising sea levels and crumbling infrastructure. In southern Europe, Spain is at the epicenter, one of the worst wildfire seasons in 2 decades. In regions like Porto and Castilla de Cabrera, firefighters are battling relentless flames with water-carrying helicopters. The Spanish government has now deployed 500 additional troops from its military emergency unit to assist in firefighting operations.
We have been living this for 4 days. It's all around us. It's bothering us. We haven't slept in 4 nights. We're having a very bad time.
Across the border in Portugal, satellite images captured vast plumes of smoke rising above towns like Piadão, Cadeira, and Corgas. Authorities say wildfires there have already scorched more than 155,000 hectares of land this year. Meanwhile, in South Asia, Pakistan is battling the aftermath of deadly flash floods. Rescue and relief operations resumed Monday, and heavy rainfall forced a temporary suspension. The National Disaster Management Authority confirms that more than 300 people have lost their lives in the country's northwest.
We don't want to enter our homes. Everyone is scared. When we came back to our home last night, we were afraid that the rain and flood would enter our house again. Children are scared. People cannot sleep in their homes. They were up the whole night, fearing the flood could hit their houses.
From the raging wildfires of southern Europe to the deadly floods in Pakistan, the escalating climate crisis is exposing the vulnerability of nations worldwide. Experts warn that without urgent global action, such disasters will only grow more frequent and more devastating. Rahul Upadhyay's report for DD India.
Well, though India has been experiencing heavy rainfall in several pockets during the past few weeks, the nation now braces for a fresh spell of heavy monsoon showers. The India Meteorological Department has issued red as well as orange alerts across multiple states of the country for the next 2 to 3 days. DD India's Soumya Raj Dwivedi has the report.
India remains on high alert as the monsoon tightens its grip across the country. From North's Jammu and Kashmir to South's Karnataka, relentless rains are triggering flash floods, landslides and widespread disruption. The Indian Met Department has issued red and orange alerts across Chhattisgarh, Odisha, Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra and Goa, warning of more heavy downpours in the coming days. In Jammu and Kashmir, the Met Department has forecast moderate to heavy rainfall and thunder showers at many places with intense showers or heavy rains at a few places in Jammu Division till the 19th of August. As a precautionary measure, schools and colleges in Jammu were closed for the day and Vaishno Devi pilgrimage was also suspended. In adjoining Himachal Pradesh, multiple flash floods struck the Mandi district on Sunday, disrupting connectivity along the Chandigarh-Manali National Highway. Authorities have cautioned that intermittent rainfall in the coming days may worsen conditions. Meanwhile, India's national capital Delhi is also bracing for heavy rainfall. The Yamuna River is also nearing the danger mark following the release of 178,000 cusecs of water from Haryana's Hatni Kund barrage. Moving west in Maharashtra, heavy monsoon rains threw life out of gear across several districts including Kolhapur, Nanded and Latur, causing floods, waterlogging and traffic disruption.
Orange alert in Latur and Bidar, उदगीर तो वो वाटर मैनेजमेंट इम्पॉर्टेंट है उसके लिए हमने जो तेलंगाना के इरिगेशन सेक्रेटरी है उनसे भी मैंने बात की तो पोचमपाट डैम जो डाउन स्ट्रीम को है उसका मैनेजमेंट अच्छे तरीके से हो तो उसके लिए भी हम कंटिन्यूसली टच में है लातूर बिदर कलेक्टर भी कंटिन्यूस टच में है
In financial capital Mumbai, continuous rains disrupted normal life with schools remaining shut. The National Disaster Response Force has been put on standby there. Somiraj Dwivedi's report, DD India.
Well, the monsoon session of Parliament resumed on Monday and both houses witnessed disruptions. But the spotlight in the Lok Sabha shifted to India's giant leap in space, the historic journey of the astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla to the International Space Station.
Monsoon session of Parliament resumed on Monday after the Independence Day recess. The day began with legislative business. Union Minister Piyush Goyal introduced the Jan Vishwas Amendment Bill 2025 aimed at decriminalizing minor offences and promoting ease of doing business. The bill was referred to a select committee for further examination. Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan also moved the Indian Institutes of Management Amendment Bill 2025 for consideration. However, repeated opposition protests forced adjournments through the morning. When the lower house reconvened post-lunch, attention turned to the country's breakthrough in space exploration. Members hailed astronaut Shubhanshu Shukla, who became the first Indian to set a foot on the International Space Station, a milestone that cements India's growing stature in the global space sector.
आज एक ऐसा वक्त है जब सारा देश जश्न के माहौल में है। हर माँ अपने बच्चे के लिए दुआ करती है कि वो बड़ा होकर के शुभांशु शुक्ला बने और हर बच्चा ये ख्वाब देख रहा है कि मैं भी बड़ा होकर शुभांशु शुक्ला बनूं। आज दुनिया ने भारत की क्षमताओं के आगे सर झुकाया है।
In the Rajya Sabha, opposition protests over the special intensive review of Bihar's electoral roll caused brief disruptions. Yet, the upper house managed to clear the Indian Ports Bill 2025, already passed in the Lok Sabha. Parliament reconvenes now on Tuesday, but Monday's session will be remembered less for political sparring and more for celebrating India's entry into the front ranks of spacefaring nations. With Dibendu Mondal, Tanvita Neja for DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday met Shubhanshu Shukla at his official residence in New Delhi, marking a moment of pride for the nation. And during this meeting, they discussed a wide spectrum of subjects, including Shubhanshu Shukla's experiences in space, India's strides in science and technology, and the country's ambitious human spaceflight program, Gaganyaan. And Nilesh Desai, who is the Director of Space Application Center, ISRO Ahmedabad, is joining us to throw light on this story. Thank you, Mr. Nilesh ji. What strategic opportunities does, Shukla's space mission open for future international collaborations, and also at the leadership level, because Prime Minister continues to, negotiate and talk with world leaders about India's space programs?
Yeah, so this endeavor of Shubhanshu Shukla on board International Space Station, albeit with the help of NASA and USA, has propelled India into a different league as far as human spaceflight activities are concerned. And this experience and exposure felt by Mr. Shubhanshu Shukla will go a long way in charting out our human spaceflight program, which is due to take a very giant leap in next couple of years. As all of you are well aware of, that we will have 3 unmanned flights scheduled in next 1.5 years, and followed by a crewed flight or manned flight by December 2026 or early 2027. So this experience which Mr. Shubhanshu Shukla had on board International Space Station will go a long way in charting out or helping our Gaganyaan program.
Indeed. But Mr. Desai, do you see, space research catching on amongst the youth? Also the drive increasing in India's space ambitions. Of course, we have ambitions. Gaganyaan is next. We know we are talking about a space station goal as well in 2047.
Yeah, surely. So as all of you are well aware of, India is going to celebrate National Space Day on 23rd August, which is the remembrance, 2nd anniversary of our landing on South Pole of our Indian Chandrayaan-3 lander. So taking it forward, all across we are celebrating this event this whole month at various places all across the country, and we have divided it into 7 different zones, and we are celebrating it by conducting various activities all across the country in various schools and colleges. So this will definitely win interest from various stakeholders, including students from schools as well as colleges, who are getting more and more interested with this foray of Shubhanshu Shukla into the space. It has already given impetus after the historic Chandrayaan-3 landing. So all in all,
yes,
there are exciting times ahead as far as space research and technology is concerned, and I'm sure that Indian youth, Indian students are really getting attracted to this very fascinating subject of space research and technology.
Mr. Desai, also Parliament suggests that, Shukla's mission, it has made India a Vishwa Bandhu, a friend of the world. What are your comments on that?
Surely. So as it was a mission which involved multiple countries, of course, and our collaboration with NASA and SpaceX has already strengthened the space activities. And of course, all of you are well aware that in 30th July this year, 2025, we launched NISAR, the NASA ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar Space Observatory, which is one of the costliest satellite ever built in the world. And yesterday we have switched on our payload also, and we are getting very good data. And of course, we will be generating images out of the S-band SAR, which has been built by Space Application Center Ahmedabad. And you are going to hear a lot about this NASA-ISRO collaboration as far as radars are concerned. And this, again, Artemis Accord we have already signed. And now under this foray into the International Space Station by Shubhanshu Shukla, I am sure that it will open up more and more collaborative programs with NASA as well as various other spacefaring nations, which include Japan, European Space Agency as well.
So we understand ISRO's leadership, and we are proud of ISRO's legacy. But what about the private sector participation in India's emerging space economy, sir?
Yeah, so India, as all of you know, our share in the world global space market is around 2%, not even 2%, it is 1.7%. So as our Honorable Prime Minister wants that it should be at least increased to 5%, if not 10%. So this experience with this International Space Station and the interest it has generated all across the country, not only among youths, students, but also under the private entities, private industries, which Prime Minister wants that they should take part in a very large number into our space activities. So all in all, it will give a great boost to the space economy of this country. And I'm sure with the space reforms initiated by Honorable Prime Minister, we are going to have very good times as far as space business is concerned globally.
We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Mr. Nilesh Desai, Director of the Space Application Center, ISRO, Ahmedabad. Thank you for joining us and throwing light on Shubhanshu Shukla's mission and what it does for India's space sector and space economy. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. We'll have another discussion with an expert on Ukraine and the meeting at the White House. Also, India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri has concluded his visit to Nepal.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our main stories. Russian President Vladimir Putin calls and he briefs Prime Minister Narendra Modi about the Alaska talks with President Trump. Prime Minister underlines India's consistent position for peaceful resolution of the Ukraine conflict. India welcomes Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi for the 24th Special Representative Talks. And India's External Affairs Minister Jaishankar calls for mutual respect, peaceful borders and forward-looking ties ahead of the SCO summit. The US President Donald Trump is hosting the Ukrainian President Zelenskyy and EU leaders to work out a peace deal with Russia amid the raging conflict. And Ambassador Anil Kumar Thurgunayat, former senior diplomat, is with us to help us unpack what's expected at the White House later today. Ambassador Thurgunayat, what signals, does this White House meeting send out after the Trump-Putin meeting in Alaska? How would Russia view Zelenskyy coming there with EU leaders together at the White House?
Thank you, Mark. I think that the meeting between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska, although the US media has played it down, but I think it was a very significant meeting for 2 points of view. One was the Russia-US relations that are extremely important, and they are trying to work together for their own reasons. And on the other hand, the Russia-Ukraine war, which President Trump wants to settle. And therefore, this time, as he said, this will be listening to one another, and they've been meeting after a very long time. And so President Trump heard President Putin, who told him what are his red lines, which is definitely that Russia will not, that Ukraine will not allow Ukraine to join NATO, and with which I think that President Trump has agreed. And from the very beginning, he has been talking about this. Secondly, the fate of Crimea, that for obvious reasons, Russia is not willing to cede back because it considers its own part, which you remember that Khrushchev had, while it was Soviet Union, had given it to attached with Ukraine. So Russia has claimed for strategic reasons. Its nuclear fleet and everything is there. So that's why it's extremely important. It's not going to cede that. Now the question comes to about those 4 territories that Russia has occupied in the last 3.5 years. The fate of those is something that is going to decide now which way it is going to go. But the very fact that if the United States takes a hands-off position for which you will see today what we are going to witness is that not only Zelenskyy going alone there, but he is also being accompanied by some European leaders. Therefore, whatever decisions will be taken, because now, as you have heard, Zelenskyy saying that we want ceasefire, whereas the President Putin and Trump apparently have agreed to have a permanent solution to the problem.
Okay.
So I think that there are fundamental differences. Of course, Europeans would like to carry on this war, in my view, but that's very unlikely to happen if Trump does not agree.
So, Ambassador Trigunayat, could this meeting lead to a shift, in the EU and in the US actually, and then the EU military aid policy towards Ukraine? But, Ukraine is demanding security guarantees. How will it continue to get that?
Well, again, if you have followed what was discussed and some things has come out between Putin and Trump, I believe that Putin is not averse to the idea of Trump and the Europeans providing the necessary securities, while himself going to undertake, whether constitutionally or otherwise, that is one of the sticking points, that they will never invade Ukraine. And now, those you never know. I mean, what happens 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, it could happen once again. So therefore, everybody is trying to, and it has happened in the past. So obviously, everybody is trying to find some kind of security guarantees. Now, that is something that they're going to discuss. I mean, normally it could have happened is that there is some kind of a ceasefire. Of course, after the last talks, we have seen that 3 rounds of exchange of prisoners have taken place. Children have been exchanged who've been there. So they are continuing to do those through in Turkey. But at the same time, I think that next step, which Trump is trying, is to get Putin and Zelenskyy to be on the same side. So today's meeting in that sense is pretty crucial.
And, what's at stake in this meeting for NATO?
Well, NATO is basically, unless and until, the Article 5 of NATO prescribes very clearly that if any of its member countries attacked, then only. So it takes a defensive posture in that. It does not act. So far, Ukraine is not a member of the NATO. So NATO per se is not participating in this, but individual European countries are supporting it. That's also a ruse, basically. They're all providing assistance to Ukraine, and that's why they feel that this kind of, snatching away the territories by force is not permissible under the law. They very conveniently forget what they have been doing in different countries we have seen. I mean, Iraq war, anywhere else. So they have used unilateralism to settle their scores. And this is, unfortunately, happens to be the DNA of the superpowers.
Ambassador Trigunayat, is it, too soon to discuss reconstruction of Ukraine and perhaps the removal of sanctions on Russia?
Well, I think that was one of the points that President Putin talked to, and when he even took some businessmen, I believe, with him in a delegation, and said that since President Trump has come to power, 20% bilateral trade has increased, frankly. Between Russia and USA. So, and he's giving very lot of openings, including they're talking about ExxonMobil going back and all in the oil sector. So I think that US is also looking at its own thing. Plus, Russia also has a lot of these rare earths and minerals, which it is offering to United States. So they are all trying to cut their own deal to suit their own advantage.
So indeed, there are some proposals, and our report also suggested them. Ukraine to give up Donbass, Crimea, all these parts, is this indeed workable for Ukraine?
Well, Crimea is non-negotiable, I think, from Russia's point of view now. That is something, but the others, I don't know if they are going to come out with some kind of a Minsk III or some kind of a joint force, or to see what people want, or more autonomy for the region. If all that can work out. But for that, I believe that ceding the whole territory would probably not be possible for Zelenskyy to agree to.
We leave it there. Thank you very much, Ambassador Anil Kumar Trigunayat, former senior diplomat. Thank you for throwing light on what's expected at the White House later today. Now, moving on, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and China, they have maintained that peace and tranquility in the border areas is important. And he expressed Beijing's confidence in dispelling interference, expanding cooperation and consolidating the momentum of improving bilateral ties to contribute to the development and also to provide certainty to Asia and the world. Let's listen.
The exchanges and dialogue at all levels. We maintained peace and tranquility in the border areas and resumed the Indian pilgrimage to the Mount Garampochi and Lake Mapayonzo in the Xizang Autonomous Region. We should firm up confidence to dispel interference, expand cooperation, and to further consolidate the momentum of improvement and development of China-India relations so that while pursuing our respective rejuvenation, we can contribute to each other's success.
India's Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri on Monday concluded his two-day visit to Nepal and he returned home. And during this visit, the Foreign Secretary handed over a formal invitation to the Nepalese Prime Minister Oli to visit India. The Foreign Secretary, Misri, he was on an official visit to Nepal. This was on the 17th and 18th of August. This was at the invitation of the Foreign Secretary of Nepal. And during the visit, the Foreign Secretary called on the President of Nepal as well, Ramchandra Podel, and the Prime Minister of Nepal, KP Sharma Oli, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Arzu Rana Duba. And apart from the call-ons, the Indian as well as the Nepali Foreign Secretaries, they held wide-ranging discussions. They reviewed the progress made at various bilateral initiatives and they discussed the opportunities also for further collaboration, including possible outcomes that could form a part of the Prime Minister Oli's forthcoming visit to India. Vikram Misri also met other senior political leaders of Nepal. The Dubai International Airport has launched an AI-powered immigration corridor. It lets passengers walk through immigration without having to without needing to show their passport. So Dubai International Airport has in fact allowed travelers to clear immigration in seconds without presenting documents. The project aims to eventually phase out traditional passport control altogether. As part of the Travel Without Borders initiative, the system represents a major leap in smart travel technology, combining speed, security and convenience. And a 5-day film festival opened on Monday at the Trincomalee campus of the Eastern University in Sri Lanka. The festival will showcase 5 Indian films in different languages. The governor of the Eastern Province inaugurated this event. At the opening, the director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center underlined the diversity and vibrant character of Indian cinema, which, though just 111 years old, has grown into one of the world's most dynamic film industries. The festival aims to strengthen cultural bonds between India and Sri Lanka through the medium of cinema. Still to come here on DD India News Hour. Bangladesh resumes onion imports from India after a 5-month gap. Prasar Bharati, in collaboration with CricViz, has formally launched the Great Indian Cricket Show. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. In Bangladesh, the interim government has given permission to import onions from India, and this is it's to check the the hikes in the price, the spiraling of prices of onions. After a gap of 5.5 months, the Bangladeshi importers have got the permission to import onions from India through the land route. And the first consignment of 150 tons of onions arrived in Bangladesh from India on Sunday. This was in the afternoon through the Hilliland port in Dinajpur, according to a government official posted at the port. Another consignment of 660 tons of onions in 23 trucks arrived through the Sona Masjid land port at Chapai Wa Bhanj. This is on Sunday evening. With onion prices rising again in domestic markets, importers have applied to the Ministry of Agriculture for approval to resume imports. Global markets have opened the week on a positive note, a mixed note actually. You know, the world's attention is firmly on Washington, where the high-stake talks are underway to end the conflict in Ukraine.
Global markets opened on a mixed note on Monday as attention shifted to Washington, where world leaders are holding high-stakes talks aimed at ending the three-year conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Investors showed optimism with a tinge of caution, with hopes that discussions between Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, and Volodymyr Zelenskyy could bring geopolitical clarity and lift sentiment. In Asia, stocks were mostly higher on Monday. Indian benchmark indices surged at the opening bell on Monday, with Sensex scaling over 1100 points during the day. Positive sentiment also stemmed from optimism surrounding New Delhi's suggested goods and service tax revisions. The BSE Sensex ended 670 points higher, while Japan's Nikkei ended up posting all-new record high after gaining 0.77%. Sydney and Taipei also ended higher, while Hong Kong, Seoul, and Jakarta fell back. China stocks closed at their highest level since 2015 on Monday, extending a months-long rally driven.
Well, we are cutting that story for a moment to go live across to the White House, where European leaders have arrived for this crucial meeting with the US President Donald Trump. We've been talking about this meeting where the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy and several European leaders will be meeting at the White House with US President Trump. This is in the aftermath of the Alaska summit-level meeting between the Russian President Vladimir Putin and the US President Donald Trump. That meeting took place on the 15th of August, and following that, certain proposals have been put on the table, or there was a hearing in a sense of what the positions are, and President Trump will now be discussing these with the European leaders in the presence of the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. In fact, these visuals are coming in live from the White House in Washington, D.C. We'll return to those visuals as and when, we get more inputs. But for the moment, let's continue with DD India Newshour and the sports news. Now, Prasar Bharati, in partnership with CricViz, unveiled the Great Indian Cricket Show at a grand premiere, which was held in New Delhi on Monday, and the event was graced by the Prasar Bharati chairman, Navneet Kumar Sehgal, and the Prasar Bharati CEO, Gaurav Dwivedi. Well, the Great Indian Cricket Show, it's going to air on DD Sports every Saturday and Sunday at 8 p.m. It will also be available on All India Radio and the Waves OTT platform of Prasar Bharati's digital platform. That is, in the coming weeks. DD India correspondent Narayan Singh reports. Sorry, once again we are going across to the White House, and this is the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has arrived for his meeting along with other leaders of Europe to discuss proposals on how to end the conflict in Ukraine. Well, we're keeping on shuttling between the live news that's coming in from the White House and our sports news chunk. Let's go back to that story about Prasar Bharati and the great cricket show.
Prasar Bharati, India's public service broadcaster, in collaboration with CricViz, launched the Great Indian Cricket Show at a special premiere event in Delhi on Monday. The event was graced by Prasar Bharati Chairman Navneet Kumar Sehgal and Prasar Bharati CEO Gaurav Dwivedi. CricViz Managing Director Michael Kivido also attended the program, along with former Indian cricketers Madan Lal, Chetan Sharma, Murali Karthik and Akash Chopra as guests of honor. The dignitaries spoke about India's cricketing heritage. They also highlighted the role of data, technology and storytelling in sports coverage.
There is a sports culture now. And you take any sport, the number of medals, winnings are increasing in every game, and now we may see Commonwealth taking place here, and sometime we may see Olympic also taking place. I hope our channel, in collaboration with CricViz, at least in cricket, would give not only entertainment but also more and more information and that too interesting content about cricket in the coming days.
This program here, Great Indian Cricket Show, is being launched, and I'm sure this will bring audiences the pleasure and joy of not only the game itself but also the records that seem to be getting broken with unfailing regularity these days. This program will not only bring the love for the sport, but also provide a lot of information to the people who are interested in the trivia about the game.
It's a fusion of stats, well spun, well spoken, and analyzed by former cricketers and then presented. So I think it should be inspirational.
The highlight of the event was a special screening of the Great Indian Cricket Show. It featured excerpts with Anil Kumble, Sanjay Manjrekar, Parthiv Patel and Sanjay Bangar. The show will celebrate India's cricketing legacy and aims to inspire the next generation of fans. It will air on DD Sports every Saturday and Sunday at 8 p.m. The show will also be available on All India Radio, the Waves OTT app and the Prasar Bharati's digital platforms in the coming weeks.
The Great Indian Cricket Show, this new initiative by Prasar Bharati, will bring the rich cricketing history of the Indian cricket in front of the cricket fans. The untold stories of the Indian cricket, the stories of hard work, determination, will inspire the budding cricketers, and the show will help to give more cricketers to the Indian team. With camera person Piyush, Narayan Singh, DD India, Delhi.
Well, the former Indian cricketer Akash Chopra described Prasar Bharati's sports program, the Great Indian Cricket Show, as a wonderful initiative. He also was speaking to Narayan Singh. Let's listen.
Doordarshan has launched the Great Indian Cricket Show, and it will bring the history of the Indian cricket and also the untold story of the Indian cricketers and Indian cricket. And right now I'm joined by Akash Chopra, the former Indian cricketer and the person who gave new dimension to the cricket commentary. Akash, a very warm welcome. The new initiative, the Prasar Bharati in collaboration with Cricket is launching this show. How you look this initiative, especially to inspire the budding cricketers?
Well, I see it as an endeavor to engage and inspire a very young audience. And why I say young audience? Because Mr. Modi, our Prime Minister, he keeps referring to the fact that it is a very young nation. Ours is a very young nation, and sport as consumer, whether you play it or you consume it, youth is going to be the driver. So this is an attempt to actually bring them into the fold, to engage them, to entertain them, to inspire them. Some of them will actually pick up the sport and start playing. Some of them are going to just feel inspired and just appreciate what Indian cricket has done so far.
Akash, the Asia Cup will take place next month, and according to you, which will be the perfect combination for this Indian team for this coveted tournament?
If we were to look at the last 20 odd T20Is, India has won 17 out of them. Every single series we have done well, whether it's Sri Lanka in Sri Lanka or Bangladesh here, South Africa in South Africa. We hosted England and beat them as well. I think the ingredients are already in place. You may want to add a couple of more things because now Bumrah will be available, so he walks into the team. Indian selectors will be mulling over the fact if they can find a place for Shreyas Iyer, Shubman Gill and Yashasvi Jaiswal. Obviously those many places are not available, so they have a tough job at their hand. I feel Indian cricket team is looking very good, and this Asia Cup will be a further validation of the same.
Once again, let's go across to Washington, D.C. and at the White House. Here is the Italian Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. She is also arriving for this important meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump, meeting a select number of European leaders along with the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy to discuss the way forward to try and bring peace in Ukraine. After his meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin at Alaska a few days ago. We are joined by our correspondent. We will be joined by our correspondent Amritpal Singh, who is also tracking these events, and he'll be putting them into context for us. But for the moment, let's stay with these visuals. So far, we have seen the arrival of the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, and also the Prime Minister of Italy, Giorgia Meloni. To talk a little bit about some of the options that are available in the public domain as per the discussions in Alaska. The Russians have demanded full control of Ukraine's Donetsk and Luhansk regions. That's one of the conditions for ending the three-year war. They also want Kiev to drop all ambitions to join NATO and to disarm significantly. They also want Ukraine, in fact, to pull back and to cede all of the Donbas region. So we'll continue to get you more on this as and when it happens. But for the moment, we are concluding News Hour here. Thank you very much for watching. Let's know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those of you on the go, you get the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code and download it now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. My name is Mark Lin from all of us here in Delhi. Thank you very much for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.